well, I've started recording. Do you want to anything you want to say to kick us off?
Yes.
Welcome.
Are you Oh yeah, yes, welcome, obviously. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome to the Truckcast. Now, if everything has been done correctly, and Englander has edited this video appropriately, you people should be looking at a lovely little PowerPoint presentation type thing
Oh, sorry, I should be
showing.
sharing the screen.
Yes, you should.
There we go.
Because I am blind as a bat. Oh, yay. It's brilliant. Yeah, so you'll notice that a remarkably small list of topics for today. Just the trucker strike in Canada, religion and as well as religion and the right. We will be talking about some Dawnshire stuff as usual as well. But these are the main thrust of what we'll be
Yeah.
talking about today.
Well, the second one's very
So
broad, so I mean it'll take us quite a while to get through.
yes, so just starting off with the nice, light, easy trucker strike in Canada. Uh, well, seems to be going pretty well, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, I have to be honest.
Um,
I haven't been following it too much, but I mean, it hasn't Trudeau been forced to flee or something? Due to the trucks
yeah,
descending upon Ottawa.
yeah, something like what's it like 100 trucks constantly honking their horns in the middle of
Yeah.
Ottawa, just outside of the Parliament building.
Well, that's yeah, it's certainly a memorable protest. If you ever want to, um, if truckers ever want to make themselves heard, I can't think of any better way of doing it.
Hmm. Yes, and as usual, there were all the people who were praising the BLM protests only a few months ago have started comparing the much more peaceful, I should say, noisy but noisy but mostly tranquil trucker protest to terrorism,
Yes, this one,
as we might
this
anticipate.
this one was mostly peaceful, unlike the some of the ones we saw in 2020, which was a slightly different picture.
Yes. And of course, neither I nor Englander live in Canada, so can't say much more than that, except, it seems fun, and our hearts and hopes go out to the beautiful truckers of Canada, and we hope that they're able to make some real significant political change, and maybe the American truckers will try something similar.
Yeah, well, it could be, a growing thing. Who knows? I mean,
Workers of the world unite.
yes.
First, it was the pilot strike. Well, the first thing that I was made aware of was the pilot strike. And, well, of course, that reminds me, Englanders, one thing that I've been thinking is how much should we. What's it? Because obviously we are not leftists, so we don't want to adopt the whole leftist frame of reference. But I guess the question is there ever a point where that is appropriate? Is it ever is it ever fair to say anything about the evil bourgeoisie or something in the way that the Marxists do?
Well, uh, we should we should bear in mind that I guess we've been moving into the kind of there's an elite, into kind of conspiratorial frame. Um, so I guess we almost have adopted
Oh,
that a kind of almost um, elitist, that kind of elitist frame as we have done. So not
yes,
entirely incorrect there.
a frame of class conflict, which may not be, and of course, well, this was By no means an intentional segue, but it does remind me of something I've been thinking about. On the right, we have a habit of making all kinds of conspiracy theories, some of which are certainly more accurate and true to real life than others. But we do have a way of thinking, we see horrible things that correlate, and we presume that must mean they're directly there's some kind of direct behind-the-scenes coordination between the evil world controllers. By the way, Englander, did you make sure to do the audio fix thing?
Yes, I did. It's all fine.
Okay. Because,
Don't want the what happened to the previous episodes to happen again.
yes. So as I was saying, back on my tangent, it's like the right is not completely stupid or silly when we concoct these conspiracy theories about the elite working together against us. But I do think that we have a habit of overcomplicating things, and well, I suppose that the proposition that I would make as a way of explaining the otherwise inexplicable actions of the world controllers is what's it? They are. It is true to say that they are servants of the devil, but it is not true, or at least not always true, to say that they are witting, intentional servants of the devil.
Useful idiots.
Yes, I think the amount of useful idiots on our opponent's side is much higher up the chain than most people realize. Like William Fence, to borrow a lovely phrase from academic agent, good old Bill Gates. You know, um, he's a servant of the devil in the sense that he is doing what the devil wants, not in the sense that he wants what the devil wants.
Yeah. Well,
I effectively think that because he does not apparently believe the devil to exist, he is able to unintentionally fulfill the devil's desires.
mm, well, one of the big realizations that we've had over the past few years is groups like BLM and that sort of thing. They're not they're not like the ones in control of the ideology. They are the useful idiots. They are the ones that will just um, push the ideology on the ground rather than actually set it.
Yes. Yes, and what happens to them the second they cease to be convenient? They get discarded.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? That they kind of totally BLM, for example, they were totally ignored for at least the past year or so.
Not
And
just ignored. If I recall correctly, it's not just that. It's also, as a matter of fact, that basically as soon as they it was essentially it was almost as soon as Donald Trump was out of office, all those people got arrested
yeah,
because
I
they
mean
were
that's
starting
not
to
wrong.
riot
Yeah.
under Biden, and that wasn't politically convenient for
Mm.
the machine. So I think there are certainly some very obvious signs of conspiracy, such as that.
Yes, well, we shouldn't
There are.
you shouldn't outright deny any simply on the face of it. At this point, there are many.
I think that the larger conspiracy is, like the eugenics, whatever, population control. I think that sort of stuff is. I think that few or perhaps none of the world elites have actually work together to plot anything like that, and I think that those sorts of things are more, well, the devil being semi-omnipotent, as a spiritual being, has effectively just seeded these ideas independently in the heads of many different people that perhaps aren't even entirely aware of each other.
Yeah. Well, I guess the ideology is certainly is the thing is with this current system and with the conspiracy, you find that not many people are actually fully ingrained within their what they want people to believe. Um, it's more
Yeah.
it's more that people are indifferent to it and don't really care which way it goes. Which
Like what's it like? One good example is virtually no one believes that Epstein killed himself.
yeah, but that's
Everybody knows that we certainly don't agree on who we think killed him. The
mm,
left certainly believes Donald Trump did it, and the right certainly believes that the Clintons or maybe Prince Andrew did it. But we certainly do all agree. We certainly do all agree that someone important had Epstein assassinated because he had dirt.
yeah, but that's a fairly harmless conspiracy though. It's not one that will threaten the right people, I guess you could say. At least not one that people would
Uh,
act on.
Maybe. Well, how there are certain how there are certain conspiracy theories that are not only permitted but actually encouraged.
The JFK.
Like the machine. Yeah, like JFK. Machine actively. What's it? The what we might call the dark conductors. The skinny controllers, perhaps we should call them.
Mm.
In contrast to the fat controller, who was a more just ruler.
Well, it's
The
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 watering
what
down of these kind of conspiracies to make them appear more. It's a bit more harmless.
Well, what's it like? I'm not gonna say that flat Earth conspiracy theories are a psyop because you don't even have to. Just because we know where the flat Earth conspiracy theories came from. It came from 4chan. It was literally just some rando. It was literally just some anons wanted to have a few keks, so they literally invented a conspiracy theory to make fun of conspiracy theories.
Yes, and no, obviously no one takes the flat Earth conspiracy seriously, but it's still in the public discussion. You're perfectly able to raise this as some kind of satirical thing, aren't you? Not
Yes.
because you genuinely believe in it, just because it's like a laugh, you know.
So absurd. Yeah, it's so absurd that it's harmless.
Yeah.
And the fact that there are still atheist skeptic YouTubers debunking these claims is kind of embarrassing, frankly, to the whole skeptic community.
Well, speaking of atheists, do you think that's a nice segue into the second point, or we still?
Well,
Uh,
I thought we were already in the second point. I
oh,
thought we
sorry,
were.
but we didn't formally
No, you're
introduce
right.
it.
We did go. Yeah, so right. Religion and the right. So you're right. I failed to properly introduce this, and I'm sure that my whole big long tangent about the devil is doing this, is responsible for the state of the world today.
Yeah.
Maybe turned off some people that I should have introduced this ideas more gently. You are correct, Englander. Right. So religion and the right. This is based off of a conversation that me and Englander were having the other day in the DMs on Discord. Uh, basically, it's just that I was thinking was like, there's certainly lots of religious people on the right, or at least people that claim to be religious, but it seems like there is very little faith on the right. Like we get up and we get caught up in all these Machiavellian schemes, and it's like we don't. No one ever just says, "Oh, pray for God to do something." And on the one hand, I do understand why, because God helps those who help themselves. If we just sit around praying all day, nothing's going to happen. But it is also true, at least I believe, that miracles do still happen, and at least if something is outside of our control, we really should just pray for good things to happen.
Yes, well, we were saying that it doesn't play an active part in anyone's lives anymore. It's a we're perfectly capable of saying love thy neighbor or whatever, but when it comes to actually putting into practice some of the doctrines that it teaches, which may run counter to the the more posed sort of version that we're set out to believe in modern society, most of us
Yeah.
aren't genuinely believing in it. I mean,
Yeah,
when
like a thing that I've noticed is that Muslims don't seem to have this problem, even though Islam is highly dominant religion, like it exists as an absolute majority in many countries.
mm,
There's more than 2 billion of them on Earth, but they don't seem to suffer stagnation in the way that Christian societies do.
well, they haven't undergone the secularization, have they? That Christianity has,
I
but the
suppose
question.
that's true for one thing.
Mm,
And for another thing, also perhaps it is the advantage of what we might call fractious faith. Because I've noticed it seems like in the Islamic world you constantly have like revival movements.
yeah.
Like the sort of thing that happens in America every couple of decades, and in England maybe once every 100 years, where some charismatic preacher rises out of obscurity and has congregations of hundreds or sometimes even thousands gathered in massive tents on the edge of town. Almost like the great tabernacles of old ancient Hebrew history. Um, and it seems like that sort of thing happens in American Christianity because we don't have the state church. I would say that there is a small advantage to secularism in that way.
Yes, well,
That sort of thing also, yeah.
the
As you were
remarkable
saying.
thing about Islam is just how it hasn't split into into a multitude of sects like Christianity has.
I would say actually is from what I'm aware of, and Aiden, of course, if she was on, would be able to say much more about this. Islam actually has. It's just the borders between them are a bit softer than
Yeah, good,
Christianity.
thank you.
Like a Shia and Sunni is the famous divide. That's a divide almost as old as Orthodox and Catholic Christianity. But even within that, there are almost thousands of little sects everywhere.
Yeah, true. But I suppose they don't differ so much in their doctrines. Although I mean that's
Yes, in that way, I would say it's good. Probably the best comparison to be made is between, like with Islam, is probably to Baptist Christianity,
mm,
where there's like nearly 1,000 different sects that each believe slightly different things, but they agree
yeah.
sufficiently on the larger items that they're not constantly killing each other.
Mm, yes, and we certainly in the 30 Years' War and all that kind of thing, we were we were not we were not as united as that.
Um, although no, it's like I wonder. Actually, no, I would say is that because the thing is, actually, now that I think about it, I don't think it's fair to say that because the Middle East has been war torn for all of its
Yeah,
history.
yeah, but that's
And the
between
reason
different
for that
religions, though,
before.
wouldn't it?
No, not always. Well, yes, but it's mostly between different sects of Islam, because originally there were Christians and Jews and Zoroastrians all fighting in the Middle East. But basically, since the year 800 AD, all of Arabia and most of Central Asia has been dominated by Islam. But they've still been fighting each other almost non-stop since about 800 AD, basically since the collapse of the first caliphate as established by Muhammad.
Mm. Well, going back to the
Yes,
topic
the
slightly.
thrust, religion and the right, the topic at hand, because that was sort of a
Yes.
weird tangent.
Well,
Um,
well, the thing is, it's not, yeah, as we were saying, it's not ingrained into the right, and it's not applicable to their lives. I mean, I've know a lot, quite a bit about the sort of 17th century Europe, or especially England, around the time of the Civil War. And I mean,
yeah,
both sides were. I mean, Cromwell, after he had victories, he would just kneel down and pray, just pray, and he during event like sort of incredibly important decisions he had to make, he would just pray for hours and hours on end, just trying to think about
yeah.
what he should
And
do.
like, even further back, the same thing exists. I'm not Catholic, but I do have many Catholic friends, so I can be a bit of a Catholic simp sometimes. During the Crusades, like as much as many people today do like to sort of vilify them or apologize for them, the people carrying them out were, especially in the earlier Crusades, like the first three or so, I think I want to say it is, much more religious and frankly much more righteous than people today. They would do the exact same thing as Cromwell. They would kneel down and pray.
Mm,
And what's it the guy who became king of Jerusalem during the first or second crusade, I forget which one, actually refused to wear a crown because he said it's like it is not fair for me to wear a crown in the city where Christ what's he said it is not fair for me to wear a crown of gold in the city where Christ wore a crown of thorns.
yeah. Well,
So like yeah,
we should bear in mind that as well with the Crusades, there were those peasant and child marches all the way into the Holy Lands. I mean, they didn't reach it, but the very fact that they attempted it in the first place in such mass numbers just tells us how um, deeply pious these people were.
yeah. Um, yeah, and well, it's not just that they didn't get there; it ended very badly for them. The
Mm,
Child Crusade ended with they got about as far as the Barbary Ocean, or not the Barbary, the Mediterranean coast in
yeah.
I think it's Croatia today. Maybe it wasn't there. Maybe it was more like Italy where they ended up. But they literally just ended up getting kidnapped by pirates and sold into slavery in North Africa.
Mm, yes, but the thing was that they attempted it in the first place. Um, anyway, you were going to
Yeah,
say
and
something
that's
before
not.
that, weren't you? Sorry.
No, that was just about my whole thing. It's like, yeah, people are willing to do those sorts of things. And like, what's the nearest thing to that we have today? It's basically the trucker strike in Canada.
Mm. And I guess they're marching for, or driving for freedom, I suppose. But
Yes, it's like they're not even doing it for an explicitly Christian reason, though. Like I'm sure a lot of those guys are, because truckers, being a working class community, are usually quite religious.
Mm.
But they're just doing it for political reasons. As much as we might agree with those political reasons, the whole vaccine debate is a bit shallow at times.
Yeah. Well, it's with the whole thing of freedom. I mean, I remember my our discussion with Aidan Paladin about 2 episodes ago. I was trying to. She's she wants a kind of anarcho-monarchist society to maximize human freedom. I was trying to, at least I was trying to point out or say that is freedom the ultimate good, or is I guess faith or some kind or morality or and virtue um, of more
Well, I
importance?
would say the thing that is the ultimate good, because what's it? I'm not sure how many sects of Christianity have this opinion, but my church has often said that there must be opposition in all things, which is basically to say, that you can't have without evil, and what's it? Righteousness is meaningless unless you chose it. Like you have to. There has to be some reasonable uh, alternative in order for your faith to mean anything.
Reasonable or tempting is probably what I would say in
Hey,
response.
yes. That is perhaps a better way of putting it. Yeah, there has to be some kind of what we might call seductive or tempting alternative in order for faith to mean anything. It's like
Mm,
why does God tolerate the existence of the devil?
interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'm not
As an
rehearsed.
all-powerful being, if God wanted
Yeah.
humans to suffer as little as possible, why would he tolerate the existence of the devil? Uh, of course, nearly every sect of Christianity has their own answer for this. In most sects of Islam, they say it is because God wants people to have free will. It's kind of a mystery in Islam as to why God wants people to have free will, but it's basically God let the devil rebel on purpose so that people would be tempted, so that then it would basically just be more important when they chose God over the devil.
Yes. Well,
And that is mostly the same as my church believes. Um, which is why I bring it up. It's basically just a neat point of what we might call parallel doctrine or something.
yes. Also, some kind of test of our own, what our free will brings us to.
Yeah. I suppose what Aiden Paladin, because she's a Christian,
Hmm.
she does very much want people to be righteous, but I think that what she meant by saying that freedom, or better put, liberty, is the highest is the highest goal for a government, for a nation, is that, like, well, since religion and since faith and virtue mean nothing without the existence of their opposites, a state should not exist with the goal of being virtuous. A state should exist with the goal of guaranteeing the liberty of its citizens. And if those citizens are good, they will make good decisions, and if they are evil, they will make evil decisions, and they will suffer their due consequences.
Yes, I suppose so. But would surely it should be the role of some institutions like the church to instill the values that will produce virtue rather than to just allow
Yes,
people to slip
and
into uh, immoral acts.
yes, of course, that is why. Well, that is why the church is allowed to exist. That is why we have that is the reason why we have an English view of freedom of religion rather than a French view of what you might call freedom from religion.
Yeah.
This is what we might say separates English. What's it? English monarchy or English libertarianism from French libertarianism.
Well, it's interesting that although I wouldn't, by no means align myself with this figure, that John Locke, the father of liberalism, he envisaged a society which a liberal society, but that would be predicated on the fact that people would be religious rather than irreligious, because he thought that someone without any belief has no, um, has no kind of loyalty or sort of transcendent value, I suppose.
Yes, and that is because John Locke is a English liberal, not a French liberal. Also, I would say that's why we can't discount old Locke, because he actually had some good points. It would basically, discounting everything Locke said because Locke was a liberal would basically, well, it would be worse than discounting the things that Ted Kaczynski said, because at least Ted Kaczynski actually killed people.
Yeah.
That's a much more rational reason to ignore what he said as compared to just, as compared to ignoring someone who never killed anyone because, oh, he's a liberal.
Well, I don't want to stray too far off of the topic, but I mean, one of his fundamental beliefs is that all humans are, rational and capable of deciding what is best for them in their self-interest. I probably wouldn't agree with that.
The thing that I would say is that every human is capable, perhaps, of being enlightened in that way, but it is impossible to, well, if you want to live in a liberal society, ironically enough, you can't force everyone to go to church or to go to school in order to get the appropriate values, to sort of form them into rational beings. But the thing is, if any individual that you took out of the populace and you my opinion is basically like the old quote from Men in Black: person is smart, but people are dumb.
So
I don't think that it's terribly difficult to take any random individual from any random crowd and make them come to a rational conclusion. I think that it is impossible to convince any large number of people, regardless of their background, to come to any kind of rational conclusion.
So you're saying like group psychology means that people won't be able to reach rational decisions by themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
One need only watch footage of a Congress or a Parliament, any Congress or any Parliament voting on anything, to learn that is the case.
Yeah. Well, I think.
And that's the reason why republics need presidents. That's the reason why monarchies need monarchs. Is because you can't trust people to make collective decisions. You do need one who is sort of temporarily or permanently rises above the common station to make enlightened decisions for everyone else on behalf of everyone else.
Yes, and well, should people who have no idea what kind of person that they are, who what they really believe, or or any kind of they've had no physical interaction or they haven't seen them in real life, should they be the ones that decide um, who will lead over um, this huge nation?
Yeah. Um.
Apologies for
Like,
getting so off topic, by the way.
it's fine because it is highbrow.
Yeah.
It is a highbrow discussion. Um. Am I? I've said it before. I'll probably say it again. My basic opinion is that you could probably take any random truck and give him. If you gave him the appropriate education, he could probably make appropriate decisions to be a king. The thing that makes a king is not his bloodline, it is very much, I believe, his upbringing. Um, you know, and that what's it like? That's the real reason why I would push for any kind of monarchic system. Um, is it's not because I think that God will actually, although I certainly do believe that God intervenes from time to time. And I don't mean to discount the fact that God could intervene to cause the queen or whatever to give birth to a someone predestined to be a wise ruler. But I don't think that that is the inherent reason why a monarchy would work. I think the inherent reason why a monarchy would work is because, um, what's it? Even if all the people born to monarchy were just Joe Schmoes, they're, psychologically, emotionally indistinguishable from ordinary people. They receive all the, years and years of training as a part of their upbringing, and thus they are better equipped than ordinary people to be in charge.
So rather than having a bloodline, well, I guess theoretically the kind of idea of monarchy is that from the start there was this kind of individual select group that rose above other people, and then and then therefore
Well,
they should be the ones
yeah.
who rule, and that's their kind of longevity and basis for their
Well, like the thing is, what's it like? Every monarchy, because monarchy in Europe didn't quite exist before the fall of the Roman Empire. At least not among the European civilizations as we recognize them today. Not among Gauls or uh, hold on, my earphones, my headphones are being weird. Um, please speak so that I can make sure that I hear you.
hello.
Oh yes, yes, yes. It's fine. It's fine. Anyway, as I was saying, where monarchy basically came from was that there were all these warlords in Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire, and when they died, their place as ruler got passed on to their sons. And where the knights and the nobles all came from was, basically just that first general gave his, like the warlord gave his underlings promotions and rank and land, and they passed that on to their sons.
Yeah,
The original. So we actually do know somewhat explicitly the origins of monarchy. We don't
yeah.
have to theorize it. Theorize about it. Um, and yeah. I think I lost my train of thought slightly. Do
That's
you
all
have
right.
anything
I
to
can.
add to that, Englander?
Well, going on from that, I suppose linking it slightly back to religion. I was reading a book on the sort of the medieval papacy, sort of it developing from uh, Peter to
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
theoretically from all the popes since. And one of the interesting things that happened, I'm sure lots of people know, but it was new to me. I think it was Gregory the Seventh or something like that. He changed the whole idea of the church and sort of talks about how kings were sort of subservient to the church rather than to sort of to rather than the church being subservient to the king. So an interesting
Yes.
and the church would be able to displace the king if they were to go against the um, God and the word of God. So I guess the question for Dawnshire would
Well,
be,
yes, in theory, if they
yeah,
went against the word of God, the thing that happened very often in medieval history, and I don't mean to knock on it too much because it's not nearly as bad as it is popularly perceived today. But what's it? The old joke about the Holy Roman Empire being neither holy nor Roman nor an empire really does hold true because like all these little bishoprics and areas of what we might call papal control very much what's it, the appropriate phrase might be to say that they exploited the church for political they
yeah,
used the church as a means to a political ends.
yeah. So that
In
they
theory they would
placed an
displace
ally in or
monarchs
something.
for yeah. Like in theory, they would remove monarchs who went against church doctrine, but in fact, they usually ended up displacing monarchs who went against church power and influence and
Yes,
authority.
and perhaps that's the problem with a kind of centralized um, structure like that for a church.
Yeah. Well, like, what's it? I believe that's the reason why my religion, I'm LDS, what ordinary people call Mormon. And in my church, in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, actually have it in either in the Articles of Faith or in that same like section of our doctrines. It is written that we believe that all religions, including our own, should be separate from the state because, uh, well, for various reasons. One of which is that church being tied to the state does not make the state more holy; it makes the church less holy.
Yeah, yeah, very true. Something I was thinking about um, in regards to this religion and the right, sort of steering it back towards the right, um, was why do you think people on the right are more hesitant, or some people on the right are more hesitant to going towards Christianity? So that this ties in some with some of the BAP critiques. Why is it that there's some people being turning to paganism or that sort of style rather than
Because they
rediscovering Christian roots?
because I think on the right we are more tied to ideology than we are to what we might call true faith.
Yeah,
Um, like these people, like all these, like base right wingers or whatever. These are not people that are conservative because they are Christian. Many of them, perhaps most of them, are Christian because they are conservative, which
yeah,
I think is a very backwards way of going about things.
because I think the thing is with a lot of people, those sorts of people, is that they would turn to something like um, orthodoxy and that kind of thing because they say, oh
Hmm.
yes, it's a based based branch of Christianity or whatever, without without thinking about whether it's actually true. whether they really believe it's true,
Yeah.
their doctrine.
Yeah. That is a very good thing to point out, yeah. Now certainly I don't mind all these people turning to orthodoxy because, well, orthodoxy does seem to be free of most of the scandals that the Catholic Church is entangled in, and it's centralized, so it avoids many of the worst problems of Protestantism as well. I'm sure that some Lutherans will be mad at me because I understand many Lutheran sects are relatively centralized as well, but I'm not well informed on that, so I'm not going to talk about it. Anyway, but you are right that these people are getting involved in it for improper reasons. You know, they're not based. What's it like? You know, I guess just as I said before, you know, like they're not getting involved in conservatism because they are Christians. They're getting involved in Christianity because they are conservative. That's a very backwards way of going about things.
Yeah.
And so it's only natural, you know, that when they put ideology ahead of religion, they're going to think, oh, well, I'm conservative. I want to move backwards. You know, therefore, what could possibly be more backwards than paganism?
Yeah.
So it's only rational that that some of these people turn to paganism. And again, they don't really believe in it. You know, I would say everyone except maybe the Hindus are completely LARPing at it. You know, basically just using it as an excuse to be. I don't want to throw around the phrase racist lightly because it's kind of a meaningless neoliberal slur. But so far as racist is appropriate to address anything, I think it is appropriate to say that a large number of majority of pagans, especially on the right wing, basically just using paganism as an excuse to be racist.
Yeah, I would say it gives some kind of foundation for their belief system. Um, in terms of nationalism, I suppose it's something to tie some of their ideas about that sort of thing um, to a religion,
Because
to a faith.
yeah. And again, I don't want to sound too much like a neoliberal, but I think that is because racism is kind of satanic, you know? Um, and I don't just mean racism against, like, coming from white people against black people or whatever. I mean, even, like, in South Africa today, the racism that we have of black people against white people seems satanic to me. It's you know, it's like the inability to recognize like the validity of your fellow human beings seems vile in a way that is difficult to describe.
And you would say Christianity is a defense against it.
Yes, I would say perhaps more than that. I would say Christianity is perhaps the only it's perhaps either the only, well, it is true, so perhaps it really is the only way that you can rationally believe in I don't want to say racial equity or equality or justice because that all sounds very leftoid and sort of co-opted. I don't even necessarily want to say non-racist or anti-racist because that's all been co-opted as well, but um that's it. Christianity is the most rational possible way to, or at least that I'm aware of, to ignore the category of race entirely.
Yes. Um, I
It is a way that you can do that without being like a dishonest neoliberal.
without getting too, going too much into this topic for YouTube's sake, I think just
For
people.
YouTube's sake, it's like, yeah, racism is bad, and in my opinion, it is bad because Jesus says so. Do you think that's enough for YouTube?
That probably would do, yeah. Well, I was going to add, um, it exists. Race does exist. We can't deny that. Um, and we can't deny that there
We
are.
certainly can, yeah.
We can't deny that there are little physical differences. Black, white,
Yeah.
whatever. Um,
Although,
but
some of them certainly are more superficial than others. Like the difference in skin color is certainly much more superficial than the difference in uh, morphology, body type, and
yeah,
skulls and
hmm
that sort of thing.
yeah, and there's differences in whatever tolerance to alcohol. You could go on. There's differences
Yeah, like
between.
some tribes in Africa are more tolerant to alcohol than others because some tribes had access to easily fermentable fruits and vegetables, and
Yeah,
others were almost exclusively carnivorous.
yeah, and so they exist, but it shouldn't be something you purely focus on as a kind of an ideological
So,
basis.
yes, and also, it's just, there's the old bit of like, what's it? It's fair to judge groups as groups, but it's not fair to judge individuals as groups or to judge groups as individuals. You should judge individuals as individuals and groups as groups.
Mm. And people who go from who are Christian because they're conservative, or Orthodox because they're conservative, they may think that they may still hold to the belief that, oh, I want I want one of the main goals I have is to preserve some kind of racial majority. Well, of what benefit is that if the people themselves are spiritually dead?
Yeah. Well, this is actually something. It might be the darkest of black pills, but from what I have seen, it almost seems like the white race, especially or at least in Europe, seems to deserve to become a minority, if not go extinct entirely.
Mm,
No, it seems like they have committed some almost unpardonable sins as people, as a collective people.
what do you mean in terms of? What do you mean by that?
Just the absolute void and emptiness and lack of faith.
I guess they. I mean,
Europe is home to some of the
mm,
only, what's it like, aside from borderline fascist regimes like China and deracinated capitalist regimes like Japan, Europe is home to basically the only majority atheist countries in the world.
we
And
birthed, yeah, European
I feel like,
civilization birthed modernity. The economic
yes, and
systems,
that
the
is a sin,
social
and yeah,
systems, all of it.
yeah, and if anything is worse than the crimes of Islam, and I'm not saying Islam has no crimes. You need only study the Quran itself to know that Islam is a flawed religion, but it did not birth modernity.
Yes. Um, I think we mentioned this in a podcast maybe a few episodes ago. It's the lesser of two evils. But then this is quite interesting because you hear recently because of the current state of Christianity. and we can both accept, I'm sure, that it's not great. There are, it's as with all things, it has been caught up with as modernity, but just because Islam might be based, or it might be might hold on to its
Yes,
onto its traditions more, doesn't
I
mean
would
that
say
we should bring ourselves towards that if it's not correct.
yes. Yes, like what's it like? I'm not opposed to people in our sphere converting to Islam. I just don't want them to do it unless they really do believe that Muhammad is the best of all the prophets, you know?
Mm,
Like, that's the thing, you know, like in Islam, you don't even have to, because like Islam mostly believes everything we do about Jesus. It's just that they believe that he was a prophet and not a god.
yeah,
And they believe that he was a less important prophet, or at least on an equal level with Muhammad.
yeah. So
You know, and that, in my opinion, that is an appropriate, valid thing to believe, but you should believe it because you really believe it, not just because it's based in right wing.
yeah, well, this with the current state of Christianity, um, seeing as it's incredibly, paused or whatever. Um, what would you what was what would you say to what would you suggest to people who are you know trying to find faith, but at the same time see the current state of Christianity, see the pause that has infected parts of it. That I've seen taking.
I would recommend that they read more C.S. Lewis.
Yeah,
Particularly, I would recommend that they read the was it The Terrible Strength? That Terrible Strength? Uh, because he does a very good job of explaining the fact that devil has infested each and every institution, and just because a church is paused does not mean that it was never true, or that it perhaps is not true to this day, you know.
yeah,
Like, the devil has his servants everywhere.
mm.
You know, in every political party, every in every fraternity, every college, in every newspaper, absolutely everywhere.
Well, these people, um, yeah, I guess if they don't have these spiritual moments that are present amongst believers, like in Islam, for instance, when they go on these pilgrimages, when they you go on all these sorts of
I've had
things at
some very
sites.
spiritual moments
They
myself.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I have too as well. You see these
Yeah.
people and they look like they're genuinely experiencing some sort of spirituality, and when people, I guess young men specifically, go to like the churches and that sort of thing, and they see the if one of them like if like one in the cities, for instance, preaching about helping, I don't know, refugees or something, or some sort of very um, so something like that kind of ideology, you're obviously not going to feel.
What's it like? Because Christianity is basically, it's in two different sort of dying states. On the one hand, you have the stagnating church with tired, old pipe organ music, and on the other hand, you have the church which has attempted to modernize, but it's still failing. You know, like you've got the sort of cringe modernist church with the electric guitar and drum set.
And it's almost, it's not only, yes, it's lost its spirituality, it's lost its soul, it's lost what it's been merely caught up with modern developments rather than what they actually need to instill into people.
Yeah.
How far do you compromise with the current state, um, with your own religious teachings? And I guess you've
Yeah.
you've got to, I suppose you've got to hold true to them as much as things may be falling apart around you. But
Yes, and I would say also, it's like with regards to the thing we were saying before, giving it further consideration, I'm not sure that Europe really is in such a state that the European people are going to be wiped out for their sins, but I feel like if they were, it would be incumbent upon Christians to let that happen, because your faith and your bond is like, these are not bonds of blood. They are bonds of the spirit. What did Christ say to a man who wanted to wait for his father's funeral before he followed Christ? He said, "Let the dead bury their dead." And that doesn't just apply to our personal family, that applies to the extended family, including, nations and races. I think, forgive me if that's a bad take.
no, that's you shouldn't um you shouldn't put all your energies into the nation, into the into Britain, into America, into whatever, if
Yeah.
these nations do not are as we said before, spiritually dead.
Yeah.
And
Continue.
well, and for people on the right who are more inclined towards saying the nation is probably far more important, then I feel like I feel like I think it's a kind of reprioritization of values would be necessary for them. Like what is the benefit of preserving Britain, if preserving whatever, if it simply just doesn't hold true to any of those kind of things?
Yeah. What's it like? Put things in slightly more commodic terms. God would not approve of the homo-fash regime any more than he would approve of the current state of Europe.
Yeah.
To put things in a slightly comedic sense.
Well, I think for people I think for people trying to come towards Christianity and come towards religion, it's probably I can understand how it would be incredibly difficult to do so, but in the current state. But I suppose you've got to. That's just one of the challenges, and you've got to
Yeah, what's it?
you've got to make it an active part of your life, um, and genuinely try and discover more of what it is, rather than what modern the modern church would preach, as in like
So, like, what's it like? For example, it's like LDS. Like, I would very much love if all these people that are trying to explore Christianity went over to my church, but frankly, I don't really. It's not the most important thing in the world. The most important thing in the world is just that they find something. Something really is better than nothing, and just that they deeply, authentically believe it. That they believe in Christ because they believe in Christ, and not because it helps them with some kind of political goal.
yeah, and I guess in that sense you see well you see loads of the in terms of like in America especially, you have quite a lot of people attending churches, attending those sorts of things like weddings and funerals,
Yes,
whatever.
America is still 70% religious,
Hmm.
and it is still about 40% active church attendance.
Yeah, but my question is how many people, and I'm sure most of those kind of religious attendees would be um, more conservative. How many genuinely believe in those, have genuine spiritual moments, and how many are just attending for the sake of attending?
Um, I think that the phenomenon of people attending for the sake of attending is much less a thing in America than it is in England, because like in England you've got the Church of England, so you've got people that have no faith whatsoever being involved in the institution anyway, just for tradition's sake. Like,
Mm.
like I believe that there is a famously an atheist pastor in the Church of England.
Yeah, sounds slightly
But in
contradictory
America
there.
yes, but in America you don't have any such thing like that. Like in America, with the exception of perhaps like cynical grifters, people preaching Christianity are people who believe in it, and the people practicing Christianity are people who believe in it.
Mm.
Like a lot of these pastors and preachers and clerics and stuff are legit people that had some kind of what's it? Certainly, there are plenty of them that just see it like a job, the same as any other, and like I frankly hate those people. I hate the idea of having paid clergy.
Yeah.
Um, like in my opinion, like the preacher at any church, it don't matter if it's unrelated to my own. Like random Protestant preachers should be people that like they should build those churches out of pocket, and there shouldn't be like investors and
Well,
know what
like
I mean.
like all things, it's been commercialized. It's been commodified. It's
Yeah,
been made into a kind of product, something that you can sell, something that you can buy. Um, unfortunately.
yeah. Oh gosh, that reminds me. I actually, the one and only time that I ever attended a Bible study outside of my own religion was was with a friend I had. She was my girlfriend at the time. Uh, and she like her youth pastor had a teenager's Bible study, and so I went over there once. And when I saw the building, I was just absolutely disgusted. I thought it was a McDonald's. Like it was literally like a square little,
Mm,
like trashy like wooden building with like the plastic shingles on the sides
yeah,
and a river rock facade on the front to make it look as if
yeah,
it was stone, and it had like the flat roof, the false shingles around the edges and everything.
yeah. Well,
And it literally had like a giant neon sign that was like First Baptist Church of such and such neighborhood, Belleville, Illinois.
mm, and hopefully it's the last. Um, if that kind of thing is going to be reproduced.
Yeah.
Well, that goes
Um,
onto an interesting question, really. The
and
importance of,
and then inside they had what's it? They didn't just have a mini bar, which is unfortunately like an ordinary thing in many churches, with like
yeah.
soda pop and candy for $1. They also had like a full on like merch shop with like $20 sweatshirts and stuff,
Oh dear.
$15 t-shirts.
Yeah.
It was the most paused thing ever. All I could think is like, gosh, when my church does stuff like this,
Mm,
we sell it for like $5 at a loss, mostly funded by like tithing and stuff.
mm,
Because my church has almost completely unpaid clergy.
yeah.
I believe that like the quorum of the 12 or whatever, like basically my church's version of the cardinals are the only people that get any kind of reckon they get paid at all for what they do, and that's because it's literally their job that they do. Like not just what's it. Like it's literally their all-consuming duty, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, they are called on to do that. Whereas like the ordinary bishop that you'd have in any ordinary LDS congregation in America pretty much is only doing that job on like Sunday and occasionally on Tuesday for youth activities.
Mm,
So it is required of him to have a full like a self-sustaining job and pay tithings the same as everyone else.
yeah. I guess on the subject that you were mentioning earlier of like the architecture and or just the appearance and the of these places, and what they sell,
Yeah.
how they look. I don't know how many Quakers you have in America. Have you heard of this sect?
Um, Before I studied Quaker history, I thought they were unique to America because we have so many more of them here than England.
Ah, okay. I had no idea that was the
What's
case.
it like? Yeah. Well, some of the earliest settlements in New England were originally founded by Quakers. Some of the
Ah,
founding fathers were
mm,
Quakers. Appropriately, comedically enough, it was the founding fathers that were hated most by the other founding fathers were Quakers. Like I believe the governor of New York during the Revolutionary War was a Quaker. And so he was
yeah.
basically neutral on every issue, and everyone hated him.
Well, my point was a lot of the Quaker sort of they're not churches, are they? They're meeting halls. They're very
Yeah.
they don't stand out. They're not distinct from a lot of the other buildings. There's just a
Historically, they would have been.
yes, but in the
But
kind
of course, historically, they were handmade, beautiful, wattle and daub
mm,
buildings
but
with a big cross in the front.
yeah, a lot of the churches that I see that are Quakers, the kind of modern ones, I mean even other sects as well, but they're very they blend in so much with the surroundings that it's almost you could just pass it thinking this, it could be an office
An
or a
ordinary business.
yeah, exactly. And I
Yes,
suppose
and
that's
I don't think that is appropriate. Like I understand the aesthetic of the humble church, but it should be a humble church, not a humiliated church.
mm, it should
It
stand
should.
out as a place that you could recognize. Oh, that is something where I may connect with God, not rather than in the, my own house. I mean, what would be the point if it looks exactly the same as my own house or my own office I go to? What would be the point of going to it? A lot of people would think.
Well, certainly I do believe that there should be more of an emphasis on Christianity within the home,
Yeah. Hmm.
but you are right that we still there ought to be, at the very least, some modest grandeur about the places where we gather to engage in the spirit as a community.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't saying to lavishly decorate it in wealth or anything. It was just
No, but
it's just for it to be
I do
distinct.
think that it's appropriate. Yeah, what's it like? And the thing is, like, I'm not like a Puritan. I don't think that everything has to be like simple whitewash. I think it's perfectly appropriate the way that the Catholics lavishly ornament everything.
Mm.
You know, if you've ever been to one of my, not the ordinary churches that my religion has, but the big temples are, they usually bear a very strong resemblance to Catholic cathedrals.
Yeah. Well, one of the
Um,
problems with, sorry, go on.
well, no. So I was just gonna say is like, yes, grandeur is appropriate, but it doesn't necessarily need to be big. You know,
Yeah.
like it could just be that it's a slightly nicer, slightly taller wooden building as compared to all the other wooden buildings.
Mm. Well, one of the I was thinking about this quite a bit recently, actually, with the Puritans. Um, I don't doubt that people like Oliver Cromwell, people like those sorts of types that were incredibly pious individuals. They were incredibly religious, incredibly, or at least tried to be incredibly moral and well-rounded people. But they forget by having these by whitewashing all these buildings, by having that kind of aesthetic. There's no visible appearance of the church for people who wouldn't be able to come to be able to reach that kind of piety that these figures could. Um, there's no kind of, do you know what I'm trying to get at? It's not visible in their lives.
Yeah, yeah.
It's, it's,
Um,
so it's I would
um,
say I'm trying to say a visible appearance is kind of necessary for the common mass um, to see the church.
yeah, for the ignorant trucks, so to speak. You know, so what's it like? Should we try to our best to enlighten them and encourage them so that they do not need the grand things, you know, and that a simple wooden crucifix is enough?
Mm,
Yes. But we should recognize for one thing that's a process, not something which we can, you know, skip to right away. And also for another thing, you know, it's what's it? Statues and icons and beautiful gold relief is not wrong because it is wrong inherently. It is wrong when it becomes idolatry, when you worship the image rather than the thing represented by the image.
mm. I think with the I think it was as much as well I'm not a Catholic myself, but um, I still think the actions taken in like the English Reformation, where they destroyed all these images of the wealth of the churches, was a kind of sad moment. It was a kind of tragic moment.
Yeah, and of course, as well, um, having, of course, my religious beliefs as I do,
Oh yeah, I'm back in a moment.
I pretty
Carry on.
much. Well,
Sorry,
might sound horribly uncharitable of me. You're back?
sorry. I was going to say I'll literally be a few seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, it might sound terribly uncharitable of me, but I pretty much do believe that the Church of England is built on lies and sins because, you know, I don't think that, what's it? You know, because we know why, you know, because Henry VIII literally just wanted to divorce his wives. You know, didn't make it for any kind of higher purpose. And why did he why did he rob the wealth of the churches? It wasn't because he really, in my opinion, believed that. Oh, you're back.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, you got me right in the middle of basically I was Give me if I sound too callous, but I feel like the Church of England is basically built on is basically sits upon a throne of lies
Okay.
and sin because it was not established by people that wanted to make a better, more righteous church. It was established by a king that wanted to have a more convenient divorce laws.
Yeah, a more and to to achieve it, he would get a more subservient church to himself. That's
Yes,
I would
it's
agree
like
with
he
that. Yeah.
literally usurped the throne of God and set himself up as the highest religious authority in the land.
Mm,
Keep in mind, like Henry VIII was the kind of guy who used to literally what's it like when he made peace treaties with France, he would literally almost ritualistically, like sleep with like a French whore in order to sort of consummate the agreement.
yeah, and that
No, he was not an upstanding or a righteous man
no,
in any real way.
no, certainly not. And I'm sure many the traditional Catholics would point to the Reformation as a kind of the point where it all went wrong. But I wouldn't necessarily agree. But it certainly was a moment which may have.
I think Martin Luther had his good points.
Mm,
Of course, I have no horse in this race. My church was established in like the 1830s by a
yeah.
random farm guy who believed that he had translated ancient Native American records.
Hmm.
He dug up in the middle of the forest. I certainly should not be one to critique other people's beliefs for being irrational. However, I do so far as I will allow myself to make such statements. I believe that it is fair to say that the Martin Luther King was doing things honestly and maybe had a good point, whereas King Henry VIII was an absolutely corrupt piece of
Yeah.
garbage.
And I mean, he didn't even change the doctrine very much at all. He just kind of kept the Catholic Church, but one that was with him and bowed to him. And also, a link I just thought of is kind of conservative to Christian kind of thing. Um, or perhaps that's what some of the people of that time may have thought. This is an English church, um, an English idea, an English doctrine, rather than a true doctrine, a good doctrine. So perhaps we can trace
Yes, they.
trace a link there.
Yes, that is perhaps a fair thing to say. Also, like another thing is, like everything. Perhaps this is too much King Henry bashing, but like everything that King Henry VIII did, I think it is fair to characterize it as being done out of convenience. He did not repeal Catholic laws or Catholic customs about. Hold on.
Well, with Henry VIII, he is an example of a bad Christian, I suppose, or an immoral figure, in terms of the kind of the way he acted. He had his mistresses, he had his affairs and cheating and divorce. He was not the person. Obviously, we should hold up as some kind of Christian figure. I'm not saying a lot of people do, but it's I guess you could say that it's been going on for a long time. This kind of um, wielding the church, using the church rather than um, believing in the church and supporting it. Sorry, you're back. Carry on. Oh, you there? Ah, it's gone. Okay. Hello. Well, I guess I'll carry on.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
back.
Go on.
Gotta go 1 second. Yeah, I didn't hear what you said while I was gone. Sorry.
I was
What did you
only
say?
well, I was talking about going on with Henry VIII and that kind of thing, and how he lived kind of a very sinful life in terms of his mistresses, his divorces. He use the church to benefit his own ends. He
Yes, oh yes, that is still in line with what I was gonna say. So, for example, he did not repeal the Catholic customs around the celibacy of clerics because he thought that everyone ought to be married.
mhm,
He repealed those customs so that he could make familial bonds within the church, hereditary lines of bishops and stuff.
yeah,
So that he could sort of increase his own power. By saying it's like, ooh, your father received his position from me. You ought to do what I say.
yeah. Well, I don't. How should we try and link this back then to the main topic? Is
Well,
it?
I would say, just I guess in line with something we have said again and again, um, people should be. What's it? Your politics should be motivated by your religion. Your religion should not be motivated by your politics.
Yeah, and I mean the current like back then the current church may not be, as in the actual institution may not be correct. It may not be preaching the kind of things that you would want them to be preaching, but those and part of that is that your kind of duty is to find out what they should be, what faith is, and what these beliefs are, rather than what what's been corrupting these institutions. So
Yes. Oh God, my dog. Yes. The impiety of other people, I would say. In short, the impiety of other people is no excuse for your own impiety.
mm. And I think with churches, we as in the institutions, we shouldn't forget that they're um, just like with normal humans, they're liable to sin, they're liable to being corrupted, and it shouldn't be. We shouldn't pagans shouldn't look at the church and think, oh yes, because it's in its current state, um, therefore we should turn against Christianity. Um, it's not the church that you should be um, focusing on; it's the faith itself. And if yeah, if, I mean if like if the,
Yeah, I that
yeah, go
that
on.
sounds like a good take. No, I was just saying that's a good take.
Well, yeah, with the sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Um. Oh, I think that the main thrust of this conversation is basically just that we are very annoyed that people are letting their religion be motivated by their politics and not the other way around.
Mm, yeah, I mean,
Does that help you reorientate your train of thought?
yes, well, perhaps through religion you may um, have these kind of have more tradition, um, have more uh, natural ways of being, like the traditional gender roles and all that sort of thing.
You're
And that,
roboting a bit, bro. I can't hear you.
oh, sorry, can you? Am I all right now?
I didn't quite hear what you said for the past 15 seconds.
Okay, can you? Am I
Yes,
fine now? Yeah. So basically, I was
you are correct now. I can hear you.
yeah. So I was trying to say, like as no, I've lost it. How's it managed to? I've managed to forget it after about 15 seconds. It will come back to me.
Yeah. Okay. It was something about traditional thing. I was
Yeah,
really
sorry, yeah,
interested to
sorry.
hear what you
I
were
remember
saying,
now.
but the
Yeah.
first time you said it, you roboted.
So
It.
is basically on the right, we seek, as we were discussing earlier, the right seeks hierarchy, the right seeks tradition. The right seeks, I guess, authenticity in terms of past values, past belief systems, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
I would say authenticity in terms of everything, you know,
yeah,
like the right is not the right, I would say, is not even completely adverse to moving towards future things. It's just that we want to do that with authenticity and not irony or cynicism.
mm. And yeah. So what my point was is, it's not through those things that you would come to religion. It's through the religion that you would come to have traditional values, have um, all those sorts of things that I just outlined.
Yes. Yes. I think that's a very good take. Yes. Yeah. Well, the hierarchy versus egalitarianism are like conversation that you and I were having, and
Hmm.
the argument that I was having with the people on shallow lore, or with some of the people on shallow lore,
What was this
is
about? Sorry.
oh like egalitarianism versus hierarchy and stuff is you know, it's like the right should not support hierarchies for their own sake. We
Oh,
should
sorry. Yeah,
support
yeah.
hierarchies
Hmm.
because they, in the way that a physicist supports physics, you know, and
Yeah.
like just because something is a hierarchy does not mean that it is a fair or a just hierarchy, you know,
Mm.
and just because something is equal, I would say, like just because something talks about equality or whatever does not mean that it is evil, you know. Like egalitarianism is not wrong because it is evil. It's wrong because it is simply incorrect. You know, you can't get people that are equal in every way. You can't even, and it's very difficult to get people that are equal even in a limited number of ways.
Yeah. Um.
Now,
And
if there existed a place where people were equal, then you would not want to. There existed a place or any kind of thing or reason, any category where people were actually naturally equal, you would not want to disturb that and make them unnaturally unequal.
yeah. And such a society though would be quite um, would not be very common for everyone to be completely equal. I mean, if we if you go by equality to its follow it out to its greatest extent, it would just be basically everyone's the same. Everyone's completely um, indistinguishable. Um, which
Yes. Oh, of course. And I guess also this is where we get into horizontal differences versus vertical differences. You know, like um, or perhaps like horizontal position versus vertical, whatever. Anyway,
is this in regards to the political
like what's it like
compass
a
or
baker? A baker is obviously not. No, not quite.
oh
What I
sorry
was thinking is more like a what's it like a baker any more important than a butcher, even
oh
though they're
sorry
two
yeah
entirely
hmm
different categories of person,
yeah I
both
see
sort of they occupy the same space uh vertically, even though they occupy different spaces horizontally.
mm, yeah
Um
so with hierarchy um, I guess I don't know you probably agree in terms of it has to have a purpose. It has to be um, it has to be just. It has to be
yes.
authentic. Even it has to be. I mean, with something like the modern totalitarian states of the 20th century, um, even the
Yes,
even the things
what's
today.
it like there are people I I would say, like there are people on the right who will say that, like, ooh, Stalin was based or Hitler was based or whatever. The thing is, the sort of well, just because they were strictly hierarchical, which I think is a bit stupid because these were not authentic or natural or proper hierarchies. You know, it was they were, well, for one thing, they were revolutionary hierarchies. You know, so there's a bit of horrible Frenchness about them in that way. Um, you know, and for another thing, also, these were societies built on like secret police and sort of a foxy deception, not very dissimilar from the what we might call the modern liberal totalitarian state.
Yes, and just like these totalitarian states of the 20th century, our modern states have leaders and hierarchies that are very disattached, if that's a word, from us. Um, we don't, they're so distant from us. You know, what did the average person? Yeah, he hadn't met the leader of uh, Nazi Germany, Moustache Man, mid-century German. Um,
The
they're all in this
Austrian
life.
painter.
Yes, it was kind of. I think a hierarchy, at least well, I'm sure thinking it's back to Dawnshire, would probably be a far more local one. It would be far more noticeable
You know,
rather
like
than.
what's like in Dawnshire, you know, like the steward would be on the one hand very much like a man of high status, sort of high in the hierarchy, uh, sitting upon like his beautifully carved, oaken throne, set with the ivory of like a walrus that he killed himself on some great Canadian hunting expedition or something. But he would also be like an ordinary guy, that like wears an ordinary coonskin cap when it's cold and goes down for like a big mug of hot chocolate at the local pub, the same as everybody else.
Mm, well, I guess this links back quite well to the church thing to do with the aesthetics. Um, they must be. You must be able to see. You must be able to see the kind of the hierarchy, see the steward in action, see the celebrations, the
Yes,
things he's doing.
yes, and
Um,
again,
go
in this way, this is why I was thinking, it's like the steward would not be allowed to use anything imported, but the church and like religious stuff would be, like regardless, like if we actually build the regardless of whether it is a purely verbal metaphorical symbol or if it actually does become like a real symbol that like we actually do build like two physical thrones, like the throne of the Earth would certainly be made from like local woods and stuff, and upholstered with like the local etc., decorated, like and carved very finely, yes, but it would not have any precious metals or gemstones embedded in it the way that the divine throne, the throne of the King of Heaven or whatever we want to call it, would have.
mm.
Um,
But yeah, you still
Perhaps
be able
simply
to.
we ought to call it the throne of the king to make a bit of a Polish style flex. Like Christ is literally the sovereign monarch of Dawnshire, and so therefore his symbolic throne would literally just be the king the king's throne.
Mm, yeah, and no man can sit on it.
Yes, and like this would be one of the duties in the coronation ceremony is the one of the oaths is that the steward protects the throne of the king from usurpers.
Mm. And
Even at the cost of his own life, which does not merely mean that he must defend, like at sword point, he must get into like fights and stuff to defend it with his own blood. But it also means, like if he usurps it himself and he is later cast down, it is lawful to execute him for that crime.
yes, the church is more than capable of stepping in if he abandons his um, duties that have been afforded to him.
Yes, and actually, I was thinking is perhaps this should be like an additional, sort of like sign or whatever of the monarchy. It would be like a perhaps the like perhaps we should not lean too hard on old Greek stuff, but perhaps there should literally be a sword hanging above the not by a horse's hair thread certainly, but like there should literally be like like a flat pointed executioner sword
Mm,
hanging above the steward's throne at all times as a
yeah.
just to remind him the consequences of failure in his role.
Mhm. Yeah, perhaps.
If you fail to fulfill your duty to God, you may be executed, and if you fail to fulfill your duty to the people, you might be executed. So it's a
Mm,
watch out and be a good guy.
yeah. Well, with the churches in Dawnshire, it's I guess it's going to be like a it's when we say as an institution, it's not as a one single church with a single doctrine with a single um, structure.
No,
It's
we
like a
might try to tie them together with a frat club,
mm,
like the Masons or something, but more based, and also just for technical legal reasons, it can't be the Masons because the Catholic Church is not allowed to interact with them. But we might. But even if we don't, I think that they're oh yeah, it would literally just be like the bishop from that church and the pastor from that church and the et cetera, would literally just get together, like to have council occasionally and talk about things with or without the monarch.
yeah.
Um, like have the right to their own council or something.
Mm. Um, yeah. Well, I can't really think of any follow up to that. Is there I guess is there anything else you'd like to point out? Um,
Um, I don't know. Aside from maybe just like more parallels or whatever of like well, just more on the topic of Dawnshire, I guess. Well, perhaps do we want to talk about the possibility of funding Dawnshire with NFTs?
yeah.
It's like, of course, I don't suspect that you or I actually believe in NFTs in and of themselves. Um, but I suppose it's a bit of a debate, maybe. Perhaps we ought to get some people that are more expert on them. It's like, is our NFT like as far as NFTs are concerned? Is it appropriate to try and use this tool of modernity to dismantle modernity?
Yeah. Um, I'm not very.
To use
Yeah.
yeah, like it's to use a Marxist phrase. Is it possible to use the master's tools to deconstruct the master's house?
And I'm sure it probably is.
Yeah,
But
but
then,
there's
is it
also a
like
part of
the
me that it's like that could be a recipe for disaster.
yeah? Well, is it like the ring of power? You use it and you almost you try to use it for good, but it ends up becoming evil in and of itself.
Yeah. I think maybe not because what we what's it? It wouldn't even necessarily have to be an NFT. We could just have like a conventional art drive, where like we literally just make like little paintings and sell them for like slightly overpriced in order to like cuz charities will do that sort of thing.
Mm,
So I suppose we could just market it as that as a digital art drive via NFTs.
yeah, I mean that's certainly an option. We shall keep it keep it as a keep it in mind.
Yeah. Well, also on the topic of NFTs, I was actually thinking is so I made some. It was meant to be like an art for a Fallout fan game that I wanted to make, but basically it was like these 16 or no these 32-bit drawings of like Fallout type characters, you know, like Wasteland Raiders and stuff. And well, a lot of NFTs are pixelated as well, so I was actually thinking it might be fun. Well, you know, like you and I were talking about yesterday about Dawnshire probably in the end is going to look like a bunch of mulatto Amish with guns or something slightly silly like that. You know, it's like I was literally just thinking is like, wait a minute, you could use that to make like an NFT generator, you know, with like people of like with men and women both in different kinds of like old-fashioned clothing, also of like every different like race and body type and whatever, and with different firearms as well. You know, like I got a black guy in a seersucker suit with a MP what's it with like a golden AK-47, or I got a Asian person dressed like a medieval farmer carrying a silver AR-15 or something, you know, like silly stuff like that.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I
You
can't
know,
really. Yeah, I don't really know what to.
maybe like I got an Arab woman dressed like an Amish woman with a Mosin Nagant.
Yeah. Well, the world's our oyster.
Yes. Yes. Anyway, but no, I found one of these images. I will put it in the Discord so that you
Mhm.
can put it on the actually so you can actually put it on the display
Mhm.
for our
Yes.
viewers if you
Mhm.
so please. Um, let's just let me
I will have to
go
go in
down to.
10 minutes, so there is the warning there.
Oh gosh, yes, this is a bit of a gosh, sorry. I'll hurry up then. Just a funny image to end the stream. You know, on such a funny topic.
Easing us back out of the more deep subjects.
Yes. Okay, so it's in the truck cast thread.
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
So do you want to put that on the screen for our viewers?
I can just edit that in later on. I think
All right
would be
then.
easier.
It probably would.
Well, is there any,
So,
go on.
any last remarks? Well, I guess I'll just start with the basic sign off, and then maybe we can think to shill anything else.
Hmm.
I'm an Englander. Do you have your own YouTube channel?
I do. There is nothing on it, but it exists.
Well, you're pretty good at video editing. Maybe you could, I don't know. Anyway, maybe you could publish tutorials or something. Okay. Oh, what about what about your essay? Would you like to maybe give like or anything else like that you've been working on? Is there any projects that you'd like people to be aware of?
Uh, no, I mean
Substack maybe?
I have one, yeah, but and I'll hopefully be posting something soon in sort of a few weeks' time onto it. I
Right.
mean,
So yeah, just you know, shill your Substack, put a link or whatever in the
yeah,
maybe give me the link later and then I can put it in the video description.
yeah. Well, thanks very much. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So,
Oh,
Good
I would
morning,
also
good
shill.
afternoon, good evening, and good
Hold on.
night. I've not got much to shill aside from,
I have
other
one more
episodes
thing
of
to
this
shill.
podcast. Yes?
On the subject of, since we were talking about religion and trying to develop your faith, I would thoroughly recommend some of Lambda's videos where he's been, he's
Oh,
running through
yes.
proverbs and that kind of those sorts of videos.
Lambda Bible study.
They are
Very
very.
based.
It's a brilliant channel. I would suggest it, highly suggest it.
Yes, so would I. Lambda, I think, very much does not fall into the trap of being religious for political reasons.
Mm,
I very much believe that he is the sort of person that has his political opinions for religious reasons.
yes,
Uh, on that topic, I would just like to shill the Discord server the uh, and the subreddit as usual. You can find us at r/Dawnshire, and you can receive an invitation to the Discord server by either commenting in by either just requesting an invite in the comment section below, or else by requesting an invitation in the subreddit, which is r/Dawnshire with a capital D.
we also have the
Otherwise, just spell yes.
we also have the the word I can't pronounce, the skidlings one.
Shieldings?
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, it is spelt very oddly. I'm sure that you can give people, if anyone would like to be in our shieldings, actually is, yes. There is a Dawnshire shieldings for any of you right wing dissidents that are too snooty to use Discord.
Sorry, I interrupted your outro. Please carry on.
Um, well, no, I think that's just about everything. Signing off is King Lobster and Englander of Dawnshire. Have a, well, the dawn shall rise, perhaps. Is that a good sign off?
Sounds good to me.
No. Maybe. You know what? Christ is king. Christ is king of the universe. He is king of Dawnshire. Uh, Goodbye, wherever
Amen.
you are, you beautiful people. All 73 of you.